Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you're all having a wonderful day. I want to talk about summoning in Dark Souls. Now, this is going to be across all the different games, just summoning as an idea. For those of you who don't know, Dark Souls, you progress through the game. It's kind of associated with being a very, very difficult game because of the fact that you take high amounts of damage. The enemy's AI can be kind of unpredictable. So, as you progress through the game, you go to these checkpoints, and if you die, you lose your progress and have to go back to the previous checkpoint. Now, summoning is basically the process of summoning other human players or NPCs and letting them help you through your progression and letting you kind of get to the next bonfire a lot easier. So, the idea of summoning, I think, does have some pros and has some cons. Now, my overall argument in this is going to be there's some big issues with it, but I think it's important to understand that summoning in and of itself is actually has some positive elements to it. It's you can't just say like, oh, get good casual like people tend to do, play the game properly. Well, there's no proper way to play the game. They can play it however they want, and if it's in the game, fair enough. Like, what are you gonna do about that? It's in the game, so you should be able to use it. But so let's start with the positives anyway. So I think for summoning, the major positives is that you can play with friends, and I think that's really cool. I think the experience of going through Dark Souls, and it's just a very unique atmosphere where you're progressing, kind of leapfrogging through the game with a friend, is really entertaining. You're overcoming these obstacles together, you're beating bosses, and obviously it's going to be easier because there's two of you, but it still feels like a process that's worth going through. And I'm like, I played through Dark Souls 2 probably about 3 or 4 times with friends, and I probably wouldn't have done that if I was just playing by myself. It's very enjoyable to do a new build. I played through the game as a strength build last time. Oh, I want to try out this weapon. It's a different move set, does a different type of damage, different gameplay. So I think that co-op is really good, that it allows you to interact with other people in a regular solo. You wouldn't get that if you were in a solo environment, right? So it's positive. I think that's definitely really good. And I think that summoning in general does allow people to see the content. Now, there's a big argument whether people deserve to see content just because they bought the game. Now, I'd say if you pay $60, but you kind of like are allowed to see the game. Like, you're allowed to progress through the game. And while I'll talk about kind of the issues later, but I think that in order to actually appeal to a wider demographic, it makes sense to have some cheatsy mechanics kind of to bypass maybe something that you wouldn't be able to normally, and you'll be able to see new bosses, see new mechanics, and a wider number of people will purchase your game and enjoy it. So I think that is a positive towards kind of just marketing the game and just allowing people to actually see the content, see the content of the game. So I don't know. There is positives, but here let's talk about some of the negatives, some of the big issues I have with summoning. So I think the biggest thing about summoning that kind of bothers me is the idea that you're not gonna learn, and that is at the heart of what Dark Souls is to me. So I think the one statement that kind of just sums up what I think about is that you're cheapening your experience of the game by summoning. Okay, well, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is that you're not going to go through the process that a solo player would go through when you're doing co-op. And I'll explain that. So, the idea behind Dark Souls is that you learn from your mistakes and you learn from the enemies, and you're going to progress as a player. So, when you're going through the game and you have you're coming from the bonfire, you're kind of progressing through the level, finding treasures, fighting enemies, and you die. So say you're 5 or 7 minutes into the area, and then you die. So you go back to the bonfire. The thing is, you lose your souls, but you don't lose the experience of going through that level. You don't lose the experience of the stuff that you learned while fighting those enemies and progressing through the level. Maybe there's a trap here, a trap there, and you're going to be able to avoid it next time because you learned from it. And the issue with summoning is that it takes that away from you. It takes that learning experience away from you, because these players have played through the level before. They have done the learning for you. They will go and deal with a trap. They will go and deal with, this certain enemy that, will usually surprise you in your first blind playthrough. And I think that you will not have the same level of overall enjoyment than as if you were playing solo. You're not going to have that feeling when you finally beat this level that you were having such problems with, and you're getting really frustrated, and then you finally overcome that barrier, that issue that you were having, and you get to the next bonfire, and your entire body just relaxes. You're like, oh, thank God, a bonfire. But if you summon and they're killing everything for you and clearing out the entire area and setting off all the traps, you're not going to experience the game in the same sort of ways as a solo player would. And I think that kind of detracts from the overall experience of a Souls game. You're removing the difficulty. You're removing the surprise factor to a certain extent. And we can also talk about bosses. So the reason that I'm not really a huge fan of summoning on bosses is that it makes them very, very simple to beat. The video that actually set this off there's an Only Afro video. And it was released pretty soon after the release of Dark Souls 3. He put it out. And it essentially shows him walking around while 2 or 3 phantoms are killing the boss for him. So he doesn't do a single point of damage to the boss, but the boss dies. So, and obviously this is an extreme sort of thing, right? Like most people won't be summoning 3 people and never touching the boss ever. But it kind of serves to show a point that you could go through Dark Souls, hypothetically, without killing a single boss by yourself, or not doing a single point of damage to a boss, because you just have your summoned comrades do it. And that's a huge issue, because you're not going to learn the boss's mechanics, you're not going to learn the timings of when to dodge, you're just skipping this entire process, and you're just cheapening your experience of the game, right? Because you're not going to be learning. And then when you finally beat the boss, it's going to be like, who cares? It was just another boss. I'm just going to go on to the next one. As opposed to you struggle through, maybe you'll die a couple times, but each time you'll get a little bit better. Or maybe, one time you don't do so hot, but then you come back the next time and almost kill it. And then when you finally finish off that final hit, and it's the boss is at 1 HP, and you're really, really close to killing it, and your palms are getting sweaty, and then you finally get that final hit. That's when the true great parts of Dark Souls occur. It's when you really, really just enjoy this moment of, it's a feeling of satisfaction that you finally overcame this thing. And I think it's just, you don't experience that if you play through the game solely co-op, or basically you're taking the easy way out. You're summoning someone to help you with it. Now again, like I've explained earlier, there are positives to it, right? But it seems to me that the very process, by skipping the process, you're missing the point and the true experience that you could be achieving within the game. Now, obviously, it's your game. It's your money. You're buying it. You're more than welcome to play it however you want. But I think that maybe if you keep an open mind and maybe think, maybe I shouldn't summon that phantom, because maybe I should actually sit through this frustration. Maybe I should actually learn from my mistakes. Maybe I should actually progress as a player and get better at the game. Because if you do that, it will feel all the better when you finally achieve the goal that you set, when you finally beat the boss or beat the level, right? And I don't know, it's just, that's just my thoughts. I really, really feel like summoning is not an overall good thing, but I can understand why it's there. I can understand why people use it, and I understand why it exists, right? Anyway, those are just my thoughts. It's just kind of a throwaway rant. I meant to do this a long time ago when Dark Souls 3 actually released, but I never really got around to doing it. I made up like a write-up and everything, but I never actually recorded it. So hope everybody's having a great day, and see you later. Bye.